Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Establish the Collection. I am your host, Cody Main, joined as always by everyone's favorite sports card whisperer, Gary Hartman. Gary, how's it going, buddy?
It's our Dirk Nowitzki episode.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
I'm good, man. I'm good. If you notice, if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll have a little news about YouTube here in a second, it's light outside right next to us here. So we're doing early morning. Now that Cody's full time at ETR, we can shift up our recording schedule. We got a AM Eastern recording time, so don't worry, the energy will still be there. But we're just switching up on everyone, and we feel good about it.
You can tell by Gary's background, but for myself, if you're watching along on YouTube, I'm in my mom's basement where it is always dark in the dungeon. So you wouldn't know it otherwise by watching my video stream. But We are recording 11 a.m. ish Eastern time as we get started a little bit later than we had expected. But I do want to keep in the theme of YouTube one small piece of housekeeping news and notes. If you used to find the show on YouTube underneath the Establish the Run umbrella, we have migrated to our very own Establish the Collection channel, separate from all the great sports betting and fantasy content you guys get at ETR. Just trying to trick the YouTube algorithm into throwing us a few more subscribers, a few more views on the YouTube page as well. So if you have not done so already, please hop over there, subscribe, just help us support the show. Just getting this new channel off the ground.
Yep, everything through last week's episode. So I think episode 39 or 40 will still be on the original Establish the Run page, but everything moving forward will be Establish the Collection. So if you want archive YouTube, still go to ETR flagship page. But Establish the Collection on YouTube, that's it. Just Establish the Collection. Please go and subscribe, like the videos that will pop up there. And we'll see. The good thing about us having our own feed is, like, if we want to do kind of any break-off content, PSA reveals like we tried, one time, it'll be way easier to kind of market and do it on our own feed, which will be great. So just went up, so brand new, but throw some love over there, and you'll see all our content moving forward visually on the Establish the Collection YouTube page.
All right, let's get right into it, Gary. We don't want to waste any time. We have a jam-packed show. We want to recap some stuff that we talked about from last week with F1 and UFC. We're going to get into plenty of that as well, but a lot of MLB discussion today. And I want to let you tell the audience as many names as possible, guys, that you're targeting before the season kicks off in just about a week now.
Yeah. Like 9 days.
Let's start here, though. Let's start with a little bit of winning formula with Gary Hartman. Can you give us a quick recap of the F1 race from last week? I believe it was the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. What were the news and notes? Any takeaways from last week's race?
Yeah, really, really interesting race and weekend overall. Starting from practice into qualifying. This was the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Bury the lead of what we're all here for, but we didn't know if this race was even going to happen. There was a bombing about a mile away from the track in Saudi Arabia, and all of Saturday night the race seemed like it was all the way into some conspiracy theories about the Saudi Arabian Kingdom race, basically a lot of money involved, whatever. So I think emotions were high on Saturday and Sunday, which may have led to some interesting results, but that's just conspiracy Gary kind of going at it. But it was a really, really fun weekend. Saudi's an interesting track. It's like a street track, really narrow on the corners, but the straightaways you can make some moves. On qualifying on Saturday, Lewis Hamilton, first time in forever. I know it's been since I think he was on with McLaren. They did not get out of Q1, meaning he did not get out of the first round of qualifying, meaning he was going to start in the last 5 positions on the grid. Obviously, we have a large enough sample size with Lewis Hamilton to know that it wasn't really probably him just being off his game, more than it was something going on with that Mercedes car. So that's something to watch moving forward. Really disappointing stuff out of Lewis Hamilton. And then, but what we have seen is what we continue to see now through the first 2 races of the season is that there's really 2 dominant teams up top, and that is Ferrari and that is Red Bull. Red Bull did not this weekend have the same issues that they had on the first week, which was they looked super fast. They had the pace, but then they broke down. Did not happen this week. I'll talk about the race in a second, but they were as good as possible, both on Saturday and Sunday. So on Saturday, we all know Max Verstappen as their lead driver. On Saturday, Sergio Perez, Checo, is kind of their number 2 driver, veteran, a really good driver in his own right. Actually took home qualifying on a really exciting last lap. If you're ever just looking for some really 30 minutes of excitement, I would really highly recommend watching Saturday qualifying, because once it gets into Q3, those last 5 minutes are just exhilarating, trying to see who might overtake the next to get the pole position. So anyway, he stole it out of Ferrari's hands. So he started atop the grid with the 2 Ferraris coming in after him, and Max Verstappen, the other Red Bull, coming in at 4. Really exciting race on Sunday. Kind of came down between Charles Leclerc, who won the first race of the season, and Max Verstappen, our reigning champion, was able to kind of come up from that fourth position to battle it back and forth with Leclerc in first and second. And ultimately, Max Verstappen did get his first win of the season, overtook Leclerc in the last couple laps there. Red Bull did have some more pace, no reliability issues with the battery or the engine or the fuel tank, whatever they thought was going on last week. And so now we have a win for Red Bull, a win for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc still sits atop the drivers' championship rankings, coming in second, obviously coming in with first last week. But I think this is going to be the battle, at least for the short term, that we're going to see. Now, Mercedes is hanging around. George Russell had a top 5 or 6 finish this week. Lewis Hamilton, credit to him, did come up from 15th all the way to like 7th or 8th. He did what he had to do. But, Mercedes is a little bit off the pace right now for sure. So it seems like a two-headed race between Leclerc and Verstappen and between Ferrari and Red Bull. I mean, Carlos Sainz is the second driver for Ferrari, Sergio Perez for Red Bull. Those guys are consistently getting in the top 4 or 5, it seems like, as well. And we have ourselves a great battle once again. And you know what? The regulation rules do seem to be working. Like, we have excitement in the midfield. Alpine, with just Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, seems to have a lot of pace. They had great battles. Ocon ended up getting up there this week. And obviously Mercedes is still hanging around. We talked about Haas and Kevin Magnussen last week. They have some pace and they look like they're going to be fun. There was a scary accident with the second driver of Haas, Mick Schumacher, who was a rookie last year in qualifying. Really scary. Thankfully, everything was okay. I think his cards are still worth looking at right now while he's like clearly behind Kevin Magnussen and his true rookies just came out. I'd be looking to buy some of that stuff up raw. But anyway, I digress. Really another fun weekend. Now we have a week off before the next race, which I believe is April 8th to 10th weekend. Don't remember. It's Australia, going to Australia. So really, really fun stuff, man. F1's off to a great start.
I have been meaning to ask you, since the qualifying issues with Mercedes and with Lewis Hamilton. I mean, people that have only followed this show or just followed Drive to Survive or whatever the case may have been, they know Lewis Hamilton as probably the greatest F1 driver of all time. Is this an issue with the Mercedes car that's going to get figured out at some point this season, and Lewis Hamilton's going to be back there atop the leaderboards again at some point soon? Or is this just an overtaking, a passing of the torch, if you will, to Verstappen and the rest of these guys?
That's a great question. And I think it's a matter of an opinion on who you'd ask. People would say Mercedes will figure it out eventually. Usually it takes like 30 to 60 days for real upgrades to hit cars, right? So, it's possible that by the time that they actually do figure out what it may be to ever get that Mercedes car the pace to compete, and I do believe they have the resources and the team in place to do so, but when they do, it's possible that Mercedes has fallen too far out of competition for this particular season. Now, who knows? It's a really long season. There's like 25 races. This goes on for 3/4 of the year. We just saw what the offseason was. It was a couple months. This goes on. Right. So it's a long season. We have Leclerc a couple points ahead right now. Verstappen's in the mix. And, let's not forget, Hamilton did get a podium last week. So he's hanging around as far as, points are concerned, was able to get back in the points this week as well. But the Mercedes will need to find that pace and will need to compete with those two top dogs right now to ever actually get Hamilton back in that driver's championship race. Now, as I said, plenty of time to do it. I would tend to think that they will figure it out and it will become a 3-dog race at some point this season, but I don't know when that has happening. We could be talking 3-4 months down the line before they actually are finding that. It's also possible that if they fall out early, kind of what we saw from Ferrari last year, that they just completely turn to next year and start putting their resources. Now, again, this is all speculation. This is really, really early. We're 2 races in, but this is something that teams do. Like they want a competitive advantage and know that they can compete. If they're not, it's kind of like the Dodgers. Beat on year, because if they're, I don't know. Sorry, did I have a little internet? But anyway, yeah. So great question. I do tend to think that they'll find that pace, but I would not be able to tell you when.
It seems like Hobby Boxes have started to find kind of their happy median right now. I think they're going for anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 right now. I think we've kind of found that leveling point where we're going to start seeing this product really reach its median level right now. From that 2021 Topps class as well. One other product that we want to discuss that we talked about last week as well, that was just recently released. First off the line, UFC has been out now for a couple of weeks, but Hobby Boxes just started selling on March 24th. We're starting to see some of that product start to funnel its way to eBay. I know Gary was mixing it up in the break streets. I still have not gotten to my hobby shop yet to try and grab a box. Hopefully there's still a few there. But I've been following along as well, trying to get into box breaks myself and just keeping an eye on some of these fighters that are coming out of this 2022 UFC class. It is crazy, man. It is crazy, some of the numbers that we're seeing for some of these guys that, you know what, I don't know what their true ceiling is from an actual fighting perspective. I know there's some certain names in here that people probably are aware of, at least from a personality perspective, but it is going to be pretty interesting to see where some of these settle in. And I'm trying my damnedest, because this is Khamzat's first auto out of this 2022 box. I'm trying my damnedest not to buy right now, because the prices on some of this stuff is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention just off the top with the UFC stuff is we're not seeing this immediate spike on hobby boxes like we did with F1. Now, obviously, they came out from Panini's website at almost $900 a pop. I think if you can find them anywhere from $800 to $850, even right around $900 at your local hobby shop, that's still a buy. But just don't expect that, an immediate return like we did with F1 if you're buying boxes to flip, if you will. So keep that in mind. And then one other thing that I noticed, I mentioned last week that it didn't seem like it was going to be overprinted, where we knew that the 2021 product was pretty short printed. It does seem like there are a few more unnumbered parallels in this product that are pretty common. We're seeing a lot of silvers start to hit their way on eBay streets. There's new cracked ice, Ruby Wave, and then a hyper unnumbered parallel. All of these seem pretty common. You're seeing a lot of them flood the eBay streets right now for all these fighters. So one thing that I would keep in mind, if you're out there buying up singles right now, I'd kind of steer clear of those cracked ice, Ruby Wave, hyper, even silvers to some degree, unless it's not in your price range. The same serial numbered cards that they had in last year's product, the blue prisms, the reds, the teals, the purples, the oranges, the ones that are numbered are the ones that I'm focusing on right now. But I want to get into a few of the fighters that we talked briefly about last week and just look at some early returns. And the headliner, of course, Paddy Pimblett, the ridiculous looking Englishman who is taking the hobby by storm, even to a level that we didn't really see immediately from Khamzat last year. But I just wanted to take a look at his blue prism. It's printed to 199. I think it's kind of a decent baseline to look at for a serial numbered card. The last 6 sales of that card in the past 2 days, raw, of course, averaging nearly $1,200, which is in excess of what we're seeing Khamzat's cards from Prism's debut last year. So I just think that we're starting to see this absurd level for somebody like Paddy Pimblett, who I don't even know if Paddy Pimblett is a great fighter yet. Great personality, going to give you some amazing quotes, going to be an exciting guy. And maybe, just maybe, he is a good fighter. But I think that once he starts to see some of the upper echelon of this welterweight division, I think he's gonna get rocked once.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Once that happens, once he gets brought back down to earth a little bit, there might be a sudden drop off there. But if I'm wrong, and Paddy Pimblett is the real deal, and he's holding a belt in a couple years or months or whatever the case may be, however quickly this guy gets fast tracked, just keep that in mind, that there is some downside risk, at least I think, with the hobby's hottest name from this 2022 class. I know you were mixing it up in the breaking streets. Did you walk away with any Paddy Pimblett when you were breaking?
Yeah, really. By the way, and I'm happy that you're getting me into it. And I've spoken to you about this a little bit also. Like, there was a point 5 or 6 years ago, I was watching most cards, and it just kind of was always a fringe sport in my life. But if there's anything, as we saw with UFC, that can get me back into a hobby, kind of aligning with exciting young talent. So I think that's what's happening for me here. I'm really into it. I kind of kept diving into a couple more breaks after I was seeing you some of the other ones we did. I did hit one Pimblett base, and I told you right after that, I'm like, I wish I had this thing right now, because these are selling for like $100 today on eBay, which was silly. But yeah, should be, I think that's coming today in the mail or something like that. So I'll probably get that up on eBay. Hit another couple, so the way some of these breakers are doing it are letter, right? So like you could do first name letters. So like if I had A and I get Amanda Nunes, I get all Amanda Nunes cards, right? So that is what happened for me in my last break. I got A. I hit a bunch of crap. I'll show it on the next one, but I did get an Amanda Nunes champion autograph red prism. The champion set, really nice. Like, particularly her picture in this year's one, she's holding 2 belts. It's really cool.
Oh, awesome.
I was just like looking at it compared to last year's, where she's a cooler picture, if you ask me. Anyway, hit that. I've hit some cool stuff. I'm excited to see how this stuff grows. I mean, I know on the Panini website yesterday, they still did have about some inventory available for $900
Yeah.
retail a box. I just looked again today, now sold out. So I would be coming directly from Panini. Those prices will start to rise a little bit over the next couple of weeks. Curious to see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I might go take a walk to my hobby shop today too, see what they're selling them for if they have them in stock.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I want to give a few other names here just real quick before we actually get into the heart of today's episode. Because if you are trying to find singles on eBay, I think, now is not the time to do it when people are ripping through this product and the hype is still there. We've talked about that plenty in the past, that maybe the time to wait will be a few months down the road when some of the hype from this product release has died off a little bit. But here are some names that I think you should be monitoring. Now, all this is price relative as well. And I'm kind of trying to compare everybody to Hamzat because that's a guy that I know I'm heavily invested in.
Yeah.
And I think the peak of the UFC hobby, at least as of right now. But a couple of names that I'm keeping an eye on and price sensitive, but we'll be trying to scoop up at the right value is Umar Nurmagomedov, who we talked about last week, Khabib's cousin, coming off first round finish at UFC 272. He's 14-0 in his professional career.
Wow.
Just a 26-year-old dude. Last fight was at featherweight. So usually the smaller fighters don't necessarily do as well, but we're seeing the lightweight division and the welterweight division both just absolutely stacked. And I think that's where a lot of the heart of the talent is too. But Umar is a guy that I think is future champion, Khabib level type fighter and should do really well long term. Shavkat Rakhmonov, who is another guy we talked about, is not going to give you the flashy quotes, not going to give you the flashy sound bites from the press conferences, but another fighter at welterweight who many think will compete with Hamzat for future welterweight titles. Just an absolute wrecking ball. Also 27 years old. If you can find his stuff cheap, I think another long-term buy and hold as he works his way up the welterweight division. And then just rapid fire here on a few other names that you might want to be keeping in mind. Tom Aspinall, Ilya Tapurio, Rafael Fiziev, Sean Brady, Jalen Turner. I think these are all really good rookie names from this class. And like I said last week, maybe not the one guy who really separates from this product like Hamzat or maybe even Paddy is going to do. But I think really strong rookie class with guys that are going to be fighting for a really long time. Really, really good fighters, young guys with plenty of upside. Their divisions are really tough right now. There's a lot of really good fighters in the UFC, a lot of really good veterans, but guys that potentially have some championship upside down the road. And then, of course, Hamzat First Autos. These prices are ridiculous right now, and to the point where I'm not even really actively trying to get my hands on them at this moment. Hopefully those come down a little bit. Who knows? Maybe they won't. He's got a fight coming up, as we talked about, on April 9th. If he runs through Gilbert Burns like the odds are suggesting he will, then it's only title fights from there, I think. So main events and title fights from there. So they might not come down. I don't know. But I think the hype just from the first autos being released just a couple weeks ago, I think you're going to see some massive prices, and hopefully they come down a little bit to where the plebes like myself can get our hands on some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned this last week, but it really does sound like what this current the NBA class is going to be like when Prism comes out. Like,
yeah,
couple top high ends like Umar, like Cade and Mobley, but moreover, it's just kind of a really deep class that's going to be fun to invest in, because let's see how these careers shake out. And there's going to be a lot of rookies to chase. So, sounds really, really similar to me. Obviously with NBA, we got Cade and Jalen Green and Mobley and Barnes and Suggs and Kuminga and Davion Mitchell and Şengün and Franz Wagner. And are any of these guys going to be all NBA guys very often? Maybe Mobley and Cade, but more likely we're going to get a bunch of all-star games in there. We're like a lot of these UFC fighters are going to, headline a bunch of cards throughout their career. Will there be champions in there? Maybe, but at the very least, there is a deep, fun class to chase. So really excited for this and to get more involved with the UFC streets. But Cody, should we move on to what the bulk of this episode will cover? And it is the most exciting sport in current. I can't even say.
You can't even keep a straight face halfway through that.
I can't even keep it with a straight face.
It does. It really feels like it's been almost a year since we even mentioned the word baseball on this show while actually talking about card markets. But we're at a point now where the lockout is over. Most of the free agents have been signed. Spring training is underway. Opening day is what I said, just over a week away.
Like
April
9 days,
7th.
9 days. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So by the time you guys are listening to this, we've got basically a week until we've got baseball on our TVs, real baseball on our TVs. And we're probably even recording this show a couple of weeks too late, unfortunately, because some of the buying windows in the offseason may have snapped shut. But before we get into specific players that you're still targeting, players that you might be buying or selling heading into opening day, I want to revisit your MLB process because we did get quite a few questions in the Establish the Collection Discord. I just want you to talk big picture real quick, things that you're looking for, boxes that you're hoping to check as you're investing in baseball players.
Yeah, happy to talk some macro. And all I'll say about this with baseball, it was really a joke. Like particularly for me, every single year I say, hey, I'm not going to care as much about the Yankees this year. I'm not going to care as much about baseball. I'm putting it on the back burner, man. Golf, F1, all the stuff I care about more. And then spring training rolls around, free agency stuff starts to settle down, and man, you know the Blues Traveler song, The Hook. The hook,
No.
like the hook brings you back. It's like this. The baseball just brings me back every single year. I can't stand the Yankees management. I can't, and trust me, we'll have plenty of times for my angry Yankees rants throughout the season. But I'm excited. I'll probably be at opening day with some friends. Like I'm just pumped. And I had my AL keeper league is back and running. I had the keeper deadline last night. Just got the email with the full keeper list. So excited about that. I'll talk about some of the guys on my team because they relate to some of the guys we're going to talk about today. But yeah, man, baseball, listen. And the reason I preamble about this is because I'm not the only person that feels this way. And I know that because I'm in the card streets. I'm all over card Instagram and everything like that. And people get excited for baseball cards. They still very much do, especially Bowman, first autos, Pops Chrome stuff, Intens, all this stuff has markets. There's reasons that Pops are super high for ultra modern. There's parallels between ultra modern NBA and ultra modern baseball as far as Pops and print concerns. Like it's all there because people still care about this stuff. Even if it feels like in our little bubble in the DFS world and everything like that, that it is so far behind basketball and football these days. It is, but not that far behind in the hobby. It isn't. So let's talk baseball a little bit. So I'll start there as far as just like what you should be looking at when you're looking. I was just doing a little bit of research before the show on some of the top names. And we're going to get into some of these guys in a second more specifically. But, the Ohtanis, the Tatises, the Sotos of the world. And, shocked to see how much these pops have gone up even since the last time we've spoken. Yeah. Just kind of thinking about it in this sense with ultra modern, you got to be careful about the kind of stuff that you're investing in. And these are going to be the names that are going to really be holding the day. But I'll just use Juan Soto as an example. His paper tops update, which is kind of his flagship paper rookie, is up to a 20K pop. So just keep that in mind that it's similar to Prism base, similar to some of the, Topps Chrome. For Topps Chrome, it's similar to that for ultra modern, like 2017, 2018 and up. We're going to see similar pops that we have in NBA. So keep that in mind just when you're thinking about investing strategy in general. And the other thing I'll say about baseball is there is very much, maybe even more than other sports to me, direct season-long on-field results correlated with spikes in card market. And last year was the most perfect example of this between Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Shohei Ohtani, who were battling it out for the AL MVP. Both had, truly historic seasons. And we saw both of their cards start last year at 30, two digits and climb all the way up. Depending on what you're looking at with Bowman, for Ohtani, for Bowman autographs, you get up to 5 figures, but 4 figures consistently for anything refractored or more rare than that. So, it is, I think as much as any other sport, long-term speculation can be helpful as far as investment is concerned. And the good thing about baseball is it's a little bit of a slower burn. So that rise happens gradually. So yes, Ohtani and Vlad got off to hot starts and never really slowed down last year. And we, if you go back and listen in the archives, you can hear when we were trying to kind of pinpoint windows when I thought like selling Vlad Guerrero Jr. was like perfect at this point. Ultimately, it probably didn't really matter because it's sustained. And now he's, one of the top 2 or 3 most young talents in baseball. And now, for the most part, it's sustained on anything rare. I mean, the stuff with the super high pops is going to stagnate or go down a little bit, but anything with a little bit of, what we know the print count on, it is sustained. So, I think pinpointing those guys, the undervalued guys, is, or somebody that you expect to take even a further leap than they already have, or just, speculating on a young prospect that maybe hasn't broken out yet, similar to a Vlad from last year. I think that is super, super helpful in baseball. And you're not like so pressed for time like you are in football where you have a weekly game and, all of a sudden you're 3 weeks in and Kyler Murray looks like the MVP favorite and you have to sell. This is, it's a more long drawn out, in investment periods. And that's good for both buying and selling as long as you're being smart and not panicking. So that's what I would say with baseball. It's a long season, 162 games. I am similar to baseball like I'm in other sports. I'm really only interested in a couple products. If we want to just talk macro from a second, Bowman for sure is my number one, like it is a lot of people's. Looking at their first prospect cards before their first rookie cards out of Topps. I'm more interested in that. Obviously, Bowman comes with autographs in all different colors and parallels, and usually that will fetch the highest premium for any player's card market. So we're going to talk about Ohtani and Vlad and Acuña and Tatis and Soto, and we'll talk just from a measure of their market. We'll talk about their Topps Chrome and Topps rookies. But if you want to take it one step further up, if you always want to see the absolute high of these players' markets, you can look at Bowman first autographs. So I think that's one thing, and those are my favorite. And then mentioning those same Topps and Topps Chrome, obviously we all know Topps Chrome, an iconic brand that still is for baseball. It is their flagship rookies in Topps paper and Topps Chrome. Most of the time, Topps Chrome is what you're looking for. There are some small examples where the paper card might be a little bit more sought after. I'll talk a little bit about some of those, but really it's Topps Chrome. And then to me, I'm still interested in some of the other high ends. That are patch autographs that are like the one card per box. So you're looking at like the Dynasty, Diamond Icons, Topps Sterling, I think is an interesting product. There's, a bunch of stuff out there like that I think is good, that I'm interested in. And then the only other thing that's worth mentioning, and we've spoken about this before, and this is probably short-lived at this, but just keep in mind that Panini are baseball cards, they are unlicensed. Obviously, let's see what happens with Fanatics and everything when everything's under one umbrella. Maybe we'll be able to license out some of these baseball cards, which will be very cool. But they do make flawless and national treasures for baseball. And the cool thing about that is, I'm not interested in 95% of that, but there is like 5% of cards that come out of that box that even with the or like one of ones or out of fives, patch autos, really cool stuff that is worth investing in. Also, the good thing about those is they have really great products from retired players, George, like Babe Ruth, like cut autographs and things like that. So there's some really high end. There's your flagship auto and flagship top stuff. And then I'm personally not interested in everything in between. I know there's a ton of products that come out every year. There's Topps Finest and Bowman's Best and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not knocking you if that's your thing. Totally understand. A lot of that stuff does sell pretty well. But I'm really interested in just kind of like those two streets, and that's it for me. So it's a much safer lane to play in as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at with baseball. I'm excited for the season. A lot of young talent, like we seem to have in all our major sports right now. And yeah, did that make sense? Did I miss anything, Cody?
Yeah, no, I think this was a really good baseline for people that are just getting back into it, or people that maybe started with football or basketball and are now finding their way into baseball, like you have gotten me into. And you mentioned it, man, the names, we were trying to come up with a list of guys that we should talk about, top of mind names, even prospects that we should be thinking about for the season and years to come. And it's like, where do you draw the line? There's so many good, exciting, young, not even just prospects, but talented Major League Baseball players at this point. And I think that's one reason you mentioned that why on-field performance matters so much more for baseball than it seems to for even other sports like basketball and football. And I think a lot of the reason why, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I've tried to theorize about this, is that the coverage of baseball is so different. And so when these guys, like we saw with Ohtani last year, and with Vlad Jr. last year, and even guys like Tatis, it's so much easier to cover them in today's media when they're having these truly transcendent seasons and truly great seasons. And so then they are more top of mind. They are in front of viewers' faces more often. And that's why you see the things like we saw last year with Ohtani's numbers going nuts and Vlad's numbers going nuts. And I think that we're going to continue to see that this year too, with a lot of the names that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, like Ohtani, maybe we should kind of talk about in a vacuum a little bit. Like he was an international sensation that was a pitcher and a hitter. Probably would have made an all-star team as both, you know what I mean? Like he truly is a top 10 guy on both sides of the coin here. So, really, really unique situation. Obviously has the international appeal. So like his spike in market is something to kind of maybe you view as a standalone event, but Vladimir Guerrero is not. And there's a lot of great talent that has the ability to transcend the sport, or at least, kind of be top of mind and be making like highlight, or hitting highlight homers on a nightly basis. So let's start there and let's talk about some of the other big names in the sport.
Yeah, why don't we stick with Ohtani real quick, because he's got prices all over the board from very low end to extremely high end. Some of the stuff that the more sought after stuff is going to be really tough to get your hands on. Let's just kind of start with his 2018 Bowman Chrome base in a PSA 10. It's got a pop count just north of 1,600, so nothing crazy. Last sold for $540. It's been relatively flat over the last 30 days. You mentioned it, total two-way player who has transcended the sport, early favorite to repeat in the American League as MVP after basically being, unanimous last season as the MVP favorite. First of all, is his 2018 Bowman Chrome base about a good baseline for his market, or is there another card we should be looking at? And how do you feel about his market heading into the 2022 season?
Yeah, I think it's a fine base. He's a very unique situation where normally, if I'm just talking about a base card for a rookie card, I would be looking straight up at the Topps or Topps Chrome, and I'd be going to Bowman for autos or even refractors or colors. But he's a unique situation where he doesn't have a first prospect. His Bowman rookies are his first prospect cards in the same way that they came out at the same time as the Topps. So yeah, I think it's totally fine in his situation. The other card that I also consider as that is the Topps Chrome. Of him, there's a pitching and a hitting. I think this is the pitching Topps Chrome. This is actually a refractor. So I'm sending this off to PSA shortly. I think this card is the other good place to look from a just kind of like a baseline perspective. So if you look at Topps Ohtani as well, the Chrome, if the non-refractor version of that has a pop of 3,500, so it's about 2,000 more. So obviously it's a more circulated card, and it's kind of settled in there nicely at $250 out of 3,500 pop, and then obviously it goes up from there for the refractors and any kind of parallels. But I think both the Bowman and that are a fine place to look. And honestly, it's a good number of the 500 for the Bowman, the 250 for the Topps with the higher pops. I mean, it's not anything to laugh at. I mean, it really is. I actually don't even hate it at 250 for that Topps card, and I'll tell you why as we kind of get into some of these other guys and their pops. But if you're just talking relatively to Vlad's pops, Soto's pops, Acuña's pops, I think that this Ohtani pop at 3,500, yes, is it up? Freaking 20x over the last year? Probably 60% over a year. 938% over 2 years. So, yeah,
that sounds about right. We're probably going to see that with a lot of these guys, I bet.
Yep. But it did peak in last July at $400, and now it's settled in this offseason at $250. So I think if he does, as you mentioned, come out and repeat that MVP performance, I think that's actually at a fine price right now. That said, I'm not saying it's like a cheap buy, like go value buy, but I think compared to what some of these other ultra modern stuff is, it's not bad. So yeah, I mean, but if you're trying to get really rare stuff, even any Bowman auto, you're spending either $5,000 or $10,000 for anything slammed up. That's just for the Chrome base, for Bowman. And then you get into, anything, colored in from there. I mean, I know auction houses and fractional have had some of like the orange, Bowman first autos and things like that. And those are just going to be, kind of grail cards from this point forward, unless his career falls off a cliff.
That was going to be the one thing I pointed out. Like if you're trying to get your hands on some of this upper end baseball stuff, and another guy that we'll talk about here next is Teammate, but if you're trying to get your hands on some of this upper end baseball product, I think one way to do that is fractional. We've talked about Dibs and Rally. I know there's two very nice colored refractors, Bowman Chrome colored refractors on Rally's site right now. I haven't looked at prices recently, but would think that heading into the season, if you're looking to get invested in some of this higher end stuff, that would be one way to do it. Let's keep it with the Angels here real quick with Mike Trout. After missing a majority of last season with a calf injury, he's going to be back in the Angels lineup. We're also getting Anthony Rendon back for the Angels. So it looked like we got a nasty little trio there in the heart of the Angels lineup this season. How are we feeling about Trout's outlook in his current card market? He's obviously been one of these guys that has been a darling in the hobby, has set records in the hobby for many years. And I think if I'm looking correctly, his kind of baseline general market card is that 2011 Topps update that's got a pop count of 5,600 now and last sold for right around 2,500. Is that kind of a good barometer for Mike Trout's card market?
Yeah, really crazy. It's basically like if Zion's rookies were made in the time when 2011 was thing, like a pop of 5,600 and holding a 2,500 value
crazy
is wild. The fact that this card, a year ago was a $7,000 card is wild to me. Pops, but I think it's settled in right now, literally at this $2,500 range. I don't think it's moving. I think if anything, it moves up because now we have a large enough sample size to show that it is, it has enough interest in value to sustain, a couple $1,000s as a card, even with a super high pop, which is Trout, I think is an interesting spot right now to be looking at as a buy. I mean, he came off last season ending with an injury. Shocking. I had a fantasy baseball draft last night. Like, shocking to see that guy is not the number one overall pick anymore. He's more like 8 to 10, which is just, I can't wrap my head around that. To me, he's still the number one consensus overall best player in baseball, I guess, competing with his teammate for that title at this point. The only thing it's to do with the Angels, like it does every year, is like we've been saying this forever, that they managed to, they have the best player in baseball. Now that maybe they have the best 2 players in baseball. How is this team not making playoffs? How is this team not making runs?
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense. And forever now, they have not been good. What they did this year is they went out and tried to secure, up their pitching a little bit. They signed Noah Syndergaard to be their number 2 after Ohtani, obviously the Mets. That's always been their problem, is they've had decent lineup and bad pitching. They signed Ryan Tepera to set up Rafael Iglesias in the bullpen. So, the back of their bullpen set up. They at least have 2, solid starters. Their lineup is Rendon also, we're waiting for him to live up to that contract. He was probably the best player in the postseason 2 years ago when the Nationals won. And then he got this huge $250 million deal from LA. Waiting for him to live up to that. Joe Adell is actually a really deep sleeper, I think, for this year. He's not on my sleeper list that we're going to talk about this year, but he was a top overall prospect in baseball only like 3 or 4 years ago. He's hitting really well in spring training right now. We've been waiting for him to kind of break out. He came out as a rookie last year, struggled a lot, but he's currently penciled in to be their starting right fielder. So no excuses for this Angels team this year. Yes. Do they not necessarily have the depth in the pitching department as we would like? Maybe, but that lineup is nasty with Rendon and Trout and Ohtani and now Odell, and Jared Walsh is a good first baseman. So, no excuses. If they make, all we want is an Ohtani playoff series, and then Ohtani and Trout playoff series, and then this stuff has room. So Trout to me, as crazy it is a buy heading into this season.
Another guy that would probably be best served to get your hands on fractionally where you can. I know I'm invested in a Trout 2009 Bowman on Rally. I don't remember which card that is. Might be the Chrome Blue Refractor.
Card, yeah. But it's any 2009 Bowman Trout stuff is wild, obviously.
Yeah, crazy prices on that stuff. All right, let's transition quickly from the grandpa of the group to one of the babies of the group, Wander Franco. Wander Mania is still driving the hobby. I think we actually talked about this after the 2022 Top Series 1 product was released, where there was some madness ensued with Wander's rookie card. Those, which I think you said the pop counts on those were just going to be absolutely absurd, but those cards in a PSA 10 were fetching over $200. How are we feeling about Wander's market, the more higher end stuff, the stuff that we're actually looking after? How are we feeling about his market heading into the 2022 season?
Yeah, what I would just do from Wando from a macro perspective is completely ignore the paper stuff that just came out. Like, unless you're getting something from like those box toppers that, if you buy hobby boxes that are like the gold chrome stuff, those are cool. Or autos, like if you're interested in that. But like still, no matter what, it's going to be overpriced. And like, why don't you just wait for Topps Chrome and his rookies out of that? And, if you're looking for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'd be looking to Bowman Chrome still. I mean, that just base Bowman Chrome 2019 for him, the first rookie. I know we spoke about that card quite a bit last year, and you had your hands on some and were selling after he came up. But is a pop of over 11,000 now, and is still holding as a $170 card. So, pretty remarkable for a card of 11,000. So for me, it'd be a sell as he kind of hits the ground running in this season. But I am interested in long-term investment on Wander. But the problem is, he's like the first poster boy of like real ultra modern, since the card market has kind of taken off. Like all these other guys we were talking about, Ohtani, Vlad, Soto, Tatis, Acuña, other stuff came out before the boom of the card market. Yeah. Wander's lined up perfectly, both and otherwise. Bowman came out a little bit before, but it was already starting to get hot. So, it's just a hard place to kind of figure out which corner you want to go into if you are buying Wander. That said, if you think he's turning into Trout or to Tatis, which I think is certainly possible, then yeah, sure. If you want to buy into, I would say in my DFS terms, if you want to buy into the buck, go for it. I don't have a problem with that. But you're going to get super high pops and super high prices for anything that's not super rare. And then on the super rare stuff, it's probably out of your range. So he's just in a very interesting, specific spot right now.
All right, talk to me about your guy. We waited long enough. Jasson Dominguez, the guy that I know you're heavily invested in, both as a fan and both in the card world. One of the top prospects in baseball right now. One of the top card names in baseball right now. How are we feeling about Jasson Dominguez?
Yeah, so I mean, still so young. I mean, I think he's only 19, and played one season of 19, just turned 19 too, I should say. Played
Yeah.
one season of minor league baseball at this point last year. Did not do fantastic, but I think the thing with Dominguez, and this maybe is slightly a concern. Is I think everyone knows he's got all the tools in the world, true 5-star superstar potential. I think people are a little bit concerned about intangibles at this point, just as far as, or just kind of like feel for the game, I should say. Like, how much, is it just pure talent, and how much is it mixed with the wannabe and the absolute feel for being just a kind of a baseball head and a baseball player. That's all speculation on my point. I don't know. It's still so early. We're still a couple of years away from Dominguez sniffing the bigs. But what we do need to see out of Dominguez this year is a leap in the minor leagues. We need to see him start to hit in the minors. Now there's no more excuses. It's what should be his third year in the minors. It's what's going to be second because of COVID. But he's 19. The Yankees have another 19-year-old rookie 19-year-old prospect who is completely surpassed Dominguez as our top prospect and is a top 10 prospect in baseball, and Anthony Volpe, who is ready to come up like next year and is going to be, for all intents and purposes, going to be the starting shortstop of the Yankees for the next 10 years. So Dominguez is not the hottest thing anymore. He's still a top 20 prospect by most accounts on most places, number 17 on MLB Pipeline. The Yankees number 2 overall prospect. And we'll see. I mean, his cards do sell, like the super high end stuff. The did sell for almost $500,000. Whenever that was in February, beginning of February. So, superfractor autos, like the hype is there. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not ready to kind of make an opinion one way or the other on the Martian yet. But we need to see him hit. We need to see him hit in the minors this year for his market to not tank.
Now, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit because we're not ready to talk prospects yet. That was just a guy that I knew you had previously been excited about, and the guy that I wanted to get your take on. There's some other guys that are already firmly established in the bigs that we should actually talk about before then, because a guy that we talked about a lot last year, Ronald Acuña, tore his ACL in July. His 2017 Bowman Chrome at a PSA 10 has a pop count of nearly 7,000 now. Last sold for $266. Has been relatively flat over the last 6 months. We had talked about Acuña is a guy that his market was extremely hot, got injured. Braves still go on to win the World Series, but we thought maybe we would get this really bottoming out of his market, a good time to potentially buy. We never really ended up getting that. Shortly after the injury, it kind of leveled off actually fairly quickly. Where do we stand on Acuña as he targets a May return to the lineup?
Yeah, it was really interesting to see that even throughout this offseason, as we've kind of been catching up on prices, it's, his stuff has really settled in, right? Like that Bowman Chrome, as you mentioned, is like a $250 card, hasn't really moved, which is fine. And, and I think that we're seeing that also being indicative of the top end of the market where, his Bowman auto stuff really was not as unchanged as I would have thought, throughout this offseason. I think people are pretty comfortable holding the autos. And what that tells you is, it's a unique talent, obviously. And I think, what we're seeing across all major sports now is that severe injuries aren't as feared, especially when you're young as they used to be. I mean, we just saw Kevin Durant come back from an Achilles and he's in the middle of his career, maybe kind of, in his 30s. We saw Cam Akers come back from an Achilles in 6 months in football, obviously not necessarily effectively, but came back. So I think modern medicine is, and, we're no experts. I'm not saying like, oh, medicine's no injuries are ever going to matter again. I'm not saying. I do think modern medicine is in a spot where people aren't necessarily just freaked out about some of these super young talents anymore. And that's good to see because people have put a lot of money into investing in these top 5, 10 talents in the league. And you don't want to see them kind of lose it all just because they have a year-long injury. So glad to see that the market didn't overreact on Acuña. I still think that if he comes back in May and he's looking good and the Braves should be set up to repeat as well as anybody else. The only difference basically on the roster this year is it's Matt Olson instead of Freddie Freeman. So you're basically making apples for apples there and you got a younger talent at first base. So, once they get Acuña back, they won the World Series without Acuña. So, he's fantastic. Excited about him. I think he'd be 3rd or 4th in my rankings of these super duper young stars, but love them nonetheless.
All right, we got good injury news, and then we got some really unfortunate injury news just a few weeks ago as we start to head into the season. One that really kind of sucked the air out of the hobby for a second there with Fernando Tatis. He's going to be sidelined for 3 months with a fractured wrist. He comes from that 2016 Bowman Chrome class that had relatively low print runs, as you just mentioned. Coming before the real big boom of the hobby. His Bowman Chrome at a PSA 10 has a pop count still under 1,400. Last sold on March 20th for $624. This is one that I've got favorited on eBay, one that I get search results for as well. If this, and we just talked about it, we're probably not going to see a big decline in his market, but heading into the season, as everyone else is excited about all these stars that are actually on the field, if it slides any from his injury, I'd love to scoop this one up at a discount. How do you feel about Tatis, and does this injury do anything for you as we get underway here?
Exact same boat. Really excited about investing in him if this dips at all. I mean, word is 3-month injury. That's not terrible, right? So we, bring him back for beginning of summer, right when the dog days are hitting, right? That's that dark time before the dark times before preseason starts for NFL. After basketball is over and all we have is baseball. So if he's going to be able to come back right at that time and kind of, recapture the hearts and souls of all baseball fans, I think there's a chance for him to kind of be tied. We were talking about last year, El Nino, as they call him. We were talking about him being, taking over. Yes, where Ohtani and Vlad may be having, slightly better seasons, sure. But as far as a face is concerned, a face of the league, it was him. He was all over all the commercials. He got the perfect attitude, man. Like, he's smiley, loves the game. Super marketable star. He's on a Padres team that's been doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on talent. And they're going to be a force for years to come now. So he checks all the boxes for me, from both being on a competitive team to being, a guy that can transcend the sport, to putting up the numbers, to being an MVP type candidate year in, year out. And how old is Fernando Tatis? Like 22 or something?
All of these guys, it's crazy.
He's just turned 23. So
when I pulled up Dominguez's age, I thought, no way this kid is still 19. I feel like he's been in the lexicon for a couple of years now, but all of these guys, man, that we're all talking about are 22, 23, 24 years old at most. Like we've talked about off the front end, baseball is in really good hands right now, I think.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And so, wrist fracture is a little bit concerning for what he does, not only as a quick bat speed hitter, but as a all-world shortstop. Like, a little bit concerning, just a little bit. Like, I trust modern medicine. They're only saying 3 months. Even if there's, let's say 3 months, and then it's a month and a half ramp up period for him to be feeling like totally himself. So you got about half the season gone of true Fernando Tatis baseball. But if we have this back half of the season with Fernando Tatis being Fernando Tatis, sign me up. I like him as a buy. So
I do want to leave us enough time to get into some of these prospects. And I know you've got a sleeper list that I have pen and paper next to me ready to write some names down. So any other established stars before we get into kind of some prospects, some sleepers heading into the season, any other established names that we didn't get to that we should talk about their market?
Yeah, Juan Soto is probably my favorite of all these guys, as far as just like, I think he actually might be the best overall player, especially from like an advanced metric standpoint. That, is not necessarily, I feel like people put him like slightly underneath those other guys. I say that, and then I look at I mentioned this before, I look at his paper tops update and has a 20,000 pop. So, but I do think like it doesn't necessarily get the same level of, he doesn't necessarily get the same level of hype that these other guys get. His Bowman base auto is up to 4.5K. I just love Soto as an investment if you could find it. I think he's been, what's fun about Soto is, he came up at like 18. And kudos to the Nationals for bringing him up. And he was productive right away, like where he's going to be able to put up, gaudy career long numbers if he does not get hurt, which is exciting stuff when you're talking about kind of record chasing. And, we're talking 15 years down the line, but if you're looking at it as long-term investment pieces, he's the kind of guy that can actually kind of make a real mark on those record books. So Juan Soto of the Nationals, I love that guy, man.
I think this was a great list of just guys that are well established in the league, but also have room for growth as well. And some of the names that, keep an eye on, names that you could still be scooping up as we head into the start of the season. The next crop of guys are the guys that I think I'm most interested in to get your take on. And I'll be taking mental notes as well as we go through this list. But the prospects is really kind of where the hobby's bread is buttered, if you will. Yep. You get these Bowman Chrome first edition cards where a lot of these guys, they still unknowns, completely unknowns, and they fetch pretty massive price tags. And I think that there's some money to be made if you can find the guys that have not yet seen that massive spike in their market. And then when they hit the bigs, they can do some of the things that the guys that we just talked about did with Soto and Luis Robert and Fernando Tatis. And you can kind of get out ahead of some of these guys. So anyway, with all that said, as a preface, who are some of the prospects that you're looking for as we head into the season?
So there's only one name to start with in this category, and it's there's not even close. It's one guy, and it's this guy, Bobby Witt Jr.
Yep.
So he is the super duper 5-star phenom prospect for the Cardinals shortstop. Obviously, his dad was a major leaguer as well, but he was the second overall pick in the 2019 draft. He was in the same product as Jasson Dominguez, 2020 Bowman, and you remember me. That was the peak of me buying cards. And was I Dominguez hunting? Yes. But did I probably luck out and get 3 or 4 huge autographs? Yes, I did. And I'm just looking at some of his numbers right now, and it's insane. I'll just start with this. Widely considered the top overall prospect in baseball right now, at least in the top 2, pretty much wherever you look. You know, I think last year in the minors, he was like 285, 17 homers, 46 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. He was minor league player of the year. But he is really, really exciting. And the hype is matching it. Now, here's the question with him. And the reason that I start him number 1 this year is it's going back and forth whether he's going to even start. He's going to start the year this year on the Royal roster. If he does, and if he gets out to a hot start, these Bowman Chrome cards that are already just on hype alone going through the roof. I mean, all I did was just type in Bobby Witt Bowman auto. And I mean, his base Chrome PSA 10 is $3,000 without him ever hitting the field. This is the speckle out of $299. And I have 2 golds out of 50 in
dear
slabs.
God.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like so anyway, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And maybe we save this for next week's episode where sometimes we talk through my kind of strategy for selling windows. And, you know, I think let's hit that as a topic next week. But man, the raw refractors out of $499 going for $3,000. So that $3,000 price. And then if you find anything colors at all, a green shimmer 9.510 went for $5,500 last week. You know, I have a gold 9.510 and a gold shimmer 910. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, his atomic went for $5,000. So, like, you know, anything Bowman auto at this point is crazy right now through the roof. So anyway, I think that he does start the league on the roster. A lot of speculation that he's going to start as their starting third baseman, where they have Albert Mondesi, you know, another son of a former leaguer, as a fantastic shortstop. So, but regardless, man, if he's just up and playing to start this year, I don't think he fails off the bat. I think better wander where like there's just too much natural ability, and he's gonna make an impact on him. So, man, it's Kansas City. It's the only thing that worries me a little bit. Like, I don't remember the last time but then right? Like, I don't remember the last time we saw a Kansas City Royal be super interesting from a hobby perspective, but I don't think it matters.
Here, I'll say this: like, we're at a point now with social media, with media in general, where these guys can transcend their markets. Like, just because he's in Kansas City, just because he's a Royal, does not mean that this guy is not going to transcend that market, especially if he comes out hot. But Gary, we can't skip past the fact that you said you have 2 of these gold autos out of 50.
I got a gold and a gold shimmer, both out of 50.
Buddy, that gold and a PSA 10 last sold for like $67,000.
Are you serious?
Yes. If I'm looking at the right card, 2020 Bowman Chrome Prospect Auto Gold Refractor out of 50, graded PSA 10. Sold for $67,000. February 13th, 2022.
So the question now becomes,
That's a massive card. Yours is raw?
No, it's a 9.5.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
So here was the picture I took on Instagram when I hit both of them. These were when they were raw.
Yeah.
But one's a 910, one's a 9.510. So the pure gold, not the shimmer, is the 9.5. So the question is, I have to go look at those subgrades. You know, I would have brought them out for the show, but I have my graded cards like in locked, secured cases.
Yes, as you should.
But I have to go look at the subs. But like, if that went for $67,000, there's a question to be made. Do I try to go get a PSA 10 and you know, out of the 9.5, which is possible because I think the card looks good. So that's a question. So you know what? Let's hold Bobby Witt, as in, I don't know if I'm holding Bobby Witt, but let's hold Bobby Witt let's continue the Bobby Witt. Let's continue the Bobby Witt conversation next week because there's a lot to be said there. Yeah.
I mean, leave it to Gary to completely derail the show with a, you know, potentially $70,000 card. Just, I didn't know I had it. I didn't know what it last sold for. But as you look at the rest of this stuff, his I mean, you just mentioned them, but the out of 499, just his Chrome Prospects auto base and a PSA 10, all this stuff is trending up and to the right. And as you mentioned it, if he's announced on the Royals starting lineup, if he comes out at third base and does what his skill set should allow him to do, that stuff's immediately going to skyrocket, just like we saw, immediately for Wander. So, man. You got some bangers on your hands.
That's wild. So, like, yeah, obviously the PSA 10 fetching the 67K is something, but the 9.510, especially for Bowman autos, are almost as accepted in the gem mint states. So, but it's the one thing where Bowman still really holds a lot of value. I mean, sorry, where Beckett still really holds a lot of value is in Bowman autographs. So I feel good about that. That's wild because I was just looking at my spreadsheet of my cards and my estimated values. I haven't updated that card's estimated value since January 30th, 2021. So a little over a year ago. And I estimated it at $5,200 on that date. So that would mean, like, even if the PSA 10 fetched 67, I would imagine this would fetch in the 40s or 50s, something like that. So I'm not complaining.
Your estimated value was probably correct because there's only been 2 sales of this card. Now keep in mind the PSA 10 pop is only 7.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you said that you updated your spreadsheet January of 2021. Well, you probably got it from a sale that happened December 29th of 2020. And it did sell for $5,500 on December 29th of 2020. So you probably thought, hey, I've got a 9.510 right around $5,500.
I always shoot it under. That's why I wrote 52. So there you go. 51. Yeah, whatever.
So just a casual 1,100% increase over the last, I guess 2 years now almost.
So this is where investing in Bowman is such a good idea. And like, I love it. People. And look, I know we're running long here, and we can maybe just finish the baseball conversation next week because it's still going to be perfect time for it. But people say that certain Bowman products are bad or like it's a weaker class. We don't freaking know. Like, yes, maybe they're not a top 5 or 10 pick in one given draft or Bowman class, but for the most part, I like hopping in a little bit of breaks for every new Bowman product that comes out, get myself some exposure to some of these first autos because you don't know who's going to hit. You really don't. I don't think the stuff Juan Soto was in 2016. He was a big prospect in that, like I don't, there's, yes, Witt was the number 2 chase in that Dominguez product. But if you were buying the Royals instead of trying to hit the Yankees, you are so freaking happy right now that that's what you were doing with 2020 Bowman. So, it's just to say that I love buying Bowman boxes. If you're looking at cards as a long-term investment, even a midterm, because a lot of these you're going to need 2 or 3 years for them to materialize. Witt, we're lucky only needed 2. Came in as a pretty polished prospect, was a 2020 Bowman. He's going to probably hit the bigs this year. You needed 2.5 years from when that stuff came out. That's a pretty good window. I mean, I was able to turn couple of Bobby Witt autos, up really hot. And then this Speckle guy right here, I'm going to send this in because these are up so right now. Literally, I'm going to send this in today. And I got to decide, do I want to send it to Beckett or PSA? I'll probably send it to PSA. If the delta's that high, if I think I get a 10, I'll probably send it to PSA.
All right, I want to continue this baseball conversation into next week, but by the time that people listen to next week's show, the season's already going to be here. If there is a tiny little window where maybe you can give out a couple of these sleepers, I know people want them. People want to know who you would be thinking about investing in that might be cheap right now. So let's try and do this real quick, just rapid fire, under a couple of minutes. Give me a couple of names that you're really high on as far as sleepers go as we head into opening day.
Yeah. So, and like, we'll talk prospects also. Just the other 2 names I want to hit really quickly from a prospect perspective of who might be on the big league roster sooner than later. Adley Rutschman, Orioles catcher, widely considered also number 1 or number 2 overall prospect in baseball. He's out of 2019 Bowman draft. Riley Green, out of the same product, Tigers outfielder, really, really strong player. Here's his blue first Bowman auto. And then also Julio Rodriguez, Mariners outfielder, might be up sooner than later. Those are your big 4 prospects that are going to get playing time this year from ultra modern Bowman products, including with Witt. Just some sleepers for me, or just undervalued guys. Still this guy, man. We've been harping it for a year now, but Bo Bichette still way too cheap. Yes. He's right up there with that whole other tier we were just talking about with Vlad, Acuña, Tatis, Soto. He's right there. If not, in that group, right underneath. He's a top 10 young talent in baseball. And for whatever reason, he does not get the same love. I don't understand it. His refractor, PSA 10 Chrome, this exact card has a pop of 1680 and only went for $120 right now. I mean, that's... It doesn't make sense. It's the refractor too. It doesn't make sense. So for some reason, not getting love reserves, just his 9.510 base Bowman Chrome Auto is $650. I think that's the exact same price we were talking about at the beginning of last year. So I don't get it. I really don't get it. I am a buy on Bo Bichette. And I think I just kept him in my AL Dynasty only league. I think he takes another leap up this year. Still incredibly young. Doesn't add up. Top 10 talent in baseball. So that's my main undervalued guy still.
All right, go out and get your Bo Bichette
Yep.
cards before the season kicks off, before he puts up another monster year. What was the guy? Was the guy that we were talking about right alongside Vlad Jr. and Shohei and all these other guys
been talking
last
about it for
year.
a year. I don't know why the market hasn't caught up on him. Couple other just quick sleepers. I think Yordan Alvarez, another guy we've spoken about. I still think undervalued. One of the top young power hitters in baseball in Houston. Ozzie Albies, I still think to be very undervalued, coming off a great playoffs and run. He's been a stud second baseman now for the Braves for 3 or 4 years. Maybe with Freddie Freeman kind of out of the way and Acuña out for a little bit here. Maybe he'll, be able to kind of show right off the gate that he's the, 1B or 2A star of that team, whatever. I like him a lot. Some other names too, I just think look at. I think Giancarlo Stanton's really interesting, coming off now a season and a half of fully healthy baseball for the Yankees. Was top 5 MVP type candidate towards the end of last year. I just think that he's somebody that was on a trajectory to be like a Albert Pujols type of card market and career. And then, he got to New York and injuries derailed him. I don't have data in front of me, but I know the last time I had looked, I was trying to find a little bit of it. The last time I had looked, I think his top stuff, it would be under Mike Stanton, not Giancarlo Stanton. But it was, a little bit undervalued for my liking. So I think he's an interesting guy from a veteran perspective. Cody Bellinger is another guy now. He's also kind of the opposite of Stanton. He's coming off a year and a half of down baseball after having one of the most dominant MVP seasons in a while. So in the NL, so trying to figure out which is the real Cody Bellinger. I would tend to think that it is the MVP version of Cody Bellinger. We've seen him do it now before. Kind of like Bryce Harper, maybe is going to be that kind of guy that has a on 1 year, off 1 year type career. And you don't love to see that for the hobby, but if that is the case, that means that we're ready for a up year for Cody Bellinger on the Dodgers, who's still, only 24 or whatever, and is one of the 26 now, I guess, whatever, and is still one of the top young guys in his mid-20s. I think he rebounds strong. So I like Cody Bellinger. Some really deep sleepers, Cedric Mullins on the Orioles, coming off a real breakout year last year. You can get his stuff for really cheap. Joe Adell, guy we just spoke about on the Angels, kind of completely fallen out of favor of the hobby after being a top prospect. I think he comes out kind of getting to hit right alongside Ohtani and Trout this year. Looks good in spring training. You can get his stuff for cheap. And that's kind of my main list right now as far as kind of just undervalued or sleeper guys.
All right, I'm going to be tailing you on all of that. Hopefully the audience enjoyed the stars of the sport. Hopefully they enjoyed the prospects and us discovering that you may have a $70,000 Bobby Witt card on your hands that you didn't know about. And then all the sleepers.
I didn't know it was $70,000. I knew I had
it. We're just adding $65,000 worth of value during a show. All the prospects, all the sleepers. I'm going to tail you on some of those. Please send me that list as soon as we get off air so I can tail you on some of those. And I think we'll be back next week with more baseball discussion. This was too fun. I always enjoy these episodes more than I think I'm going to. And I always obviously learn a lot from you. You're one of the most knowledgeable baseball guys that I speak to on a consistent basis. So hopefully we can continue this discussion after the season kicks off on April 7th. For Gary, on your way out, before I forget, on your way out, don't forget to hop over to the brand new Establish the Collection YouTube page. Throw us a subscription over there, like the video, comment, whatever you need to do just to help us out and help us beat that YouTube algorithm. And with that, for Gary, I'm Cody. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care, everyone.